not only is conflict and division really amplified in the media, it's also amplified by the way some of our politicians behave out in the public.
Yeah, well, they're trying to get a soundbite.
Right.
So it's a 30-minute news cycle, and if you're going to get in there, you all know Frank Luntz, I'm sure.
Yep.
A good friend of mine. I think he's really smart and he's great with words. We did a thing at his house one night. I can send you all a clip of it if you want to see it. He had some students from UCLA, the young Democrats and Republicans, and they were really having problems. I'm sorry, it was USC. They were really having some problems on campus. They had said some things about each other and they'd gotten online and said some really ugly things. And he had a group, it was about maybe 30 of each at his house one night. He asked me to come over and we were talking to him and it was getting pretty heated. And I said, all right, let's take a break for a minute. I said, I want you guys to get up and get in a standing dyad, which is just facing each other. And I want you to just make eye contact. Don't say anything. You can't say a word, just look each other in the eye for a minute. And I said, I want you to realize that this is a human being. Mm-hmm. And what did they face today? Have they lost a loved one recently? Do they have a dog? What's their life like? What do they think about? What do they have to deal with in their lives? Just regard them for a minute as a human being. And then I said, when I say go, I want you to say one of four things. I trust you, I don't trust you, I don't know if I trust you, I'd rather not say. And then your partner says it back to you. And then I had them circulate in the room. And then we had them go back and sit down. I said, okay, so what's your reaction? It's stunning, just that few minutes of being forced to regard the other person not as a Republican or Democrat, but as a human being. They were just red-faced and said, I'm embarrassed to say I had stopped regarding this person as a human being.
Yep.
And just taking that minute to look them in the eye, I was just looking at me. It's amazing. I'm embarrassed that I've stopped doing that and started identity politics. I was dealing with them as a this or a that. And Frank said, I've never seen anything like this. We just, it was like,
it's empathy.
It was
right?
like 9/12. It was like 9/12. You said, well, wait, you mean 9/11, don't you? No, 9/12. On 9/12, we were all Americans.
Yeah.
We were all Americans.
But Dr. Phil, here's where it gets super hard. You're 100% right about that. I wish literally the whole country would do that, right? And we even did a show here. We put families back together that were fighting about Republicans and half the families Republican, half the families Democrat, et cetera. And they, because of Trump and everything else, they hate each other, and we bring them back together and remember their humanity and the bonds that they share, et cetera. But it does get hard. Here, I'll give you an example. So I'm atheist now, but I'm born Muslim, my family's Muslim, my background's Muslim. So Trump says, I want a total and complete shutdown on Muslims entering the country during the 2016 campaign, right? Put aside the travel ban he eventually did. I don't need to get into the policy of that, but he says that, right? And then his fans say, yes, we should ban all Muslims from the country. Now, how am I supposed to react to that? Am I supposed to say, well, I love you as a human being. Yeah, go ahead and ban me, right? Like I can't say that. They're forcing me into a fight. Do you see what I'm saying? So what does somebody do in a situation like that, where it gets real hard?
I think obviously that is an extreme, unrealistic and sustainable position. And I think when politicians take extreme positions, they have to be called on it, right? They have to be called on it. And I think saying it is one thing, doing it is another. And the problem I have with either side using this heated rhetoric is there are people that are followers that will take that lead and behave accordingly. Like, for example, in 21 years, I have never said, if you've got a child and they're running into traffic, I've never even said you should suppress the behavior by just swatting them and saying, no, don't do that. Which I would never even say that. And half the country is spare the rod, spoil the child, and half of the country is you don't spank your children. And I can't say you wouldn't even spank their hand if they were getting ready to touch a hot stove. And I'll tell you why. Because there are enough mouth breathers out there in the country that would take what I said and say, well, Dr. Phil says it's okay to hit your kids. And they would abuse their children, taking what I said out of context, amplifying it, and using it as justification to abuse their children. Now you take someone like a leader who says something like you're talking about, you get these mouth breathers out there who all of a sudden they take that as license to aggress against Muslims. Or you take Democrats now who are saying he's a threat to democracy and he's had 2 assassination attempts. Both sides need to tone down the rhetoric because there are enough unstable people out there that will take that as license to advance an agenda that I think is dangerous. I think both sides keep amplifying the rhetoric and need to stop doing that.
So how do you suggest, so I totally hear what you're saying. How do you suggest people like us do our jobs, right? So like when we talk about what happened in 2020 and 2021, when we talk about the fake elector scheme, January 6th, I mean, that was an attempt to assault our democracy. And I think it's important to report the truth without unnecessary language to rile people up. But right now, I think one of the problems I'm having is that people are trying to argue that simply discussing the reality of what happened following the 2020 election is literally putting Donald Trump's life at risk. And I don't believe that to be true.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either, but there is heated rhetoric that I think could contribute to these unhooked people out there.
Like calling Trump Hitler over and over again, stuff like that.
Yeah, then you get somebody that takes that and acts on it. That's not the responsibility of the Democratic Party. That's the responsibility of the person that picked up the rifle and got on the roof and took the shots. That's not the responsibility. But we, as broadcasters and political leaders, need to recognize, hey, people, that's why I say don't spank your children. I recognize there are those out there that will overreact to that. We have to be responsible. If I'm reporting a show about suicide, I never show how they did it. I never show the memorial services because there are responsible ways to report those things so you don't have a contagion effect with some teen who says, oh, I wish they'd have that kind of thing for me. And so there is a demonstrated contagion effect. So I refuse to show that. I won't show how it happened because would I be responsible for somebody killing themselves? No, but I am aware of the contagion effect, and so I have to be a responsible broadcaster.